Hello, Dr. Kevin. How you doing today?
Good afternoon. I'm doing fine. Glad to be here. It is, and I appreciate the opportunity to share some comments with you this evening.
Okay. How do you feel COVID-19 affected the kids' learning and the K-12 system?
As a career educator, one who has been a public school teacher and a superintendent of schools and licensed education consultant in the school system in Volusia County for many, many years, for at least 30, 40 years, it has had a tremendous impact on our kids, K through 12. One of the reasons is because of the fact that when we shut the school down and we end up having the kids to stay at home, they had limited resources in their home. And a lot of times the parents were not properly educated to handle the kids. And they didn't have computers, they didn't understand how to work the computers, the parents did. So a lot of times the kids were already lacking. And we know how children learn. Children learn by doing. There are things that the research will tell you there are 3 modalities of learning. Kinesthetic, which is touching and feeling, auditorium, which is hearing, and visual, which is seeing. This is how children learn.
Good morning, Commissioner Henry.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm fine. Can you introduce yourself for everyone?
Good morning, I am Commissioner Dana Henry, Zone 5 Commissioner of the City of Daytona Beach, Florida.
Can you tell us a little bit about your homeschooling?
Well, I have been homeschooling roughly 8-9 years. And I've homeschooled all of my children at some point, and if you include all of the children, I've homeschooled probably about 12 to 15 years I've done for homeschooling. My homeschooling style is called unschooling, and it's child delight type homeschooling. So the child learns in ways that they are happiest learning, and they learn about things that they want to learn about or that they enjoy and that they like learning about. So we have an unschooling method, and it seems to work very well for our children.
During the coronavirus, how did your students do through the K-12 school system?
My children did fine during the homeschooling / unschooling process with the COVID-19, and that's because they have been homeschooled for so many years, so it wasn't a big transition for them. The biggest transition for my children was that they weren't able to go on as many field trips as they're normally accustomed to going on. We can go on a field trip every single day, and when COVID came around, we weren't allowed to do any field trips, so we were home all day, and so that's kind of hard when you're an unschooling mom. But other than that, they fared very well during the unschooling, homeschooling process during COVID-19. We didn't have any real problems.
Okay, so all of the students' grades were average, above average. Did any of the students' grades drop during the COVID-19?
Well, during the unschooling process, you don't really focus on grades. So we didn't have real issues as far as my 14-year-old who was homeschooled the entire time, but I did have other children who had transitioned to high school, and so they were in the regular school system, but they didn't have a hard time homeschooling, making that transition. Their grades did not drop because they had been used to homeschooling all of their life.
The other thing is that we have to keep in mind the parent in that household, or the significant adult in that household, or a grandparent, whomever is raising the children, they are the number one teacher, good or bad. There's no right or wrong way in raising and teaching children. I always say pray first, and you teach and lead by example. And the other thing is partnership.
Hello, my name is Yvette Gonzalez-Ferrell, and I live in Volusia County, Florida. I work for the African American Entrepreneurs Association as the Community Development Director.
Hello, Yvette. Can you tell us a little bit about how you and the family dealt with your teenage son during the COVID-19?
During the COVID-19, once we went into quarantine, my son, who's a little more of an introvert, the homeschooling wasn't, obviously the school system was not prepared. They did their best. It was a challenge. Our saving grace is that my husband is a teacher, so that helped him get through that part of it. But then when they transitioned to get back into school, I found, and a lot of other parents, as I researched, found that their child was dealing with a lot of anxiety and social anxiety. And getting back to school was a challenge. Some of the challenges we experienced was that the school system, they kept changing their schedules. Every couple of months, schedules would change. The consistency was not there anymore, which caused more anxiety, and eventually caused for my son to have to revert to homeschooling. And then that went into more of a anxiety. And right now, our biggest challenge is that he still has an anxiety and issues getting himself reacclimated into the school system. So up until right now, we still are homeschooling him because he still is having trouble making that transition to get back into the school system.
The best investment you can make is in your children, because when you invest in your children, you're investing in our future. And I say, if education is not valued in that home, it's not going to be valued by that child. And I go into the community partnership. If I don't know how to read and write myself as a parent, I make sure that I look at the village, the community village, the partnership, and try to have some kind of working relationship with people in that community and teachers, and ask them to assist, because we can learn from each other. Parents can learn by doing, and also by partnering with other people in the community. But I think they always should make a concerted effort, because, children didn't ask to be born. The school cannot do it alone. We need to stop putting all the responsibility on the school, because as we know, children didn't ask to be born. Once we bring a child into this world, we have a moral obligation, a personal and professional obligation to do what's in the best interest of that child. And that is basic skills, basic skills. I noticed that when the pandemic came in, our children, they lagged in learning, reading, writing, adding, and computing. We need to make sure that our children learn how to read, because one thing that my mother always did, she went to the 3rd grade, but she always had a book in her hand, Children imitate adult behavior. So you know what I did? I picked up a book. And if I think I can read, I will learn how to read. And read, and how you learn how to read. How children learn. Repetitious, repetitious, repetitious.
Hi, my name is Leticia Fernandez, and this is
Raquel Fernandez.
And this is Jalen Dukes.
Tisha, tell me about COVID-19, the K-12 system, how the kids did during that?
During the pandemic, in the beginning it was a struggle, especially with the whole internet, with all the kids going online at the same time. The system was crashing. And once we got the hang of it, it was more so, was it still a struggle logging in with the teachers?
Yeah, most teachers really didn't know what they were doing on the online stuff, so it was struggling.
And this, when your class was scheduled, the teachers weren't online, so therefore it wasn't a live classroom. The kids had to go in, on the online portal and get their assignments from there.
And when the kids went back to school, were they struggling to catch up, or were they doing fine?
It was more of a repeat, right?
Yeah, we just went over stuff we went leaving school, but it was a little challenging because they did throw some new stuff at us. But
It's just they had to play catch up.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think I was doing okay, and I think I had A's, B's, and C's. Still
But did you
passed.
struggle? You struggled a little bit.
Yeah, I struggled a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah,
He was
I feel
struggling
miserable.
before the pandemic. So once the pandemic hit, he didn't have a lot of time to really catch up. So he ended up repeating the second grade.
What did you do to help them, to help Raquel catch up?
It was a challenge because I was working from home too. So I was working from home and she had to log in, he had to log in, and my other one had to log in too. So it was more so making sure everybody was logging in, and then when the teachers weren't in, the class wasn't taking place, it was pretty much downhill from there. So mainly it was just playing catch up. So in the evenings we would sit down and go through the portal and see what assignments were due, and that's how they pretty much did their assignments.
If the parents is not formally educated, it doesn't matter if they're formally educated or not. It doesn't matter if they are rich or poor. It doesn't matter if they're single or married. It doesn't matter. But the parent, as I said before, is the most significant person in the household. So what the parents need to do is make sure you invest in your children.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Althea Ross Shavers, and I simply call myself the beautiful Althea. And I tell everybody if they remember the word beautiful, that they're doing good. And I am the unit director of the Lacey Family Spring Hill Boys and Girls Club here in the city of DeLand. I've been here for 21 years, born and raised here in Spring Hill, and been able to give back to a community that gave so much to me.
Miss Althea, how did the kids do during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, when the school was closed, the club was closed. So, but what we did, we were able to stay in communication with our parents through email, through text messages, through FaceTime, and then on Wednesdays, because our staff was still here working at the club, so on Wednesdays we would actually get little bags, make up little goodie bags, and take out to some of the kids that lived in the community, little pamphlets, or make little cards telling them what we missed them, keep looking up, just little simple messages to encourage them as they were home and as we were separated from them.
And after the kids came back to the after-school program, did you see where it may have affected their learning ability?
Yes, I think COVID affect all of us. And even with our kids, I think sometimes it affect us mentally, not knowing that it affect you mentally. We could notice that our kids were behind because a lot of kids were not very good at trying to do online studies because that was different. So we found them as they came back that their grades were kind of low from what they were because mentally they were not thinking like you would be when you were in a classroom setting, because remember they were home, and being home is totally different than being at school. I'm quite sure they got to watch television, got to do nothing if they wanted to. So then getting back in school from making that transition probably was not the best. So I can see them academically not where they needed to be, and emotionally.
And what steps did you take to help the kids get back up to speed?
Here at our club, we only have 3 rules: to respect staff and its members, rule number 1. Rule number 2 is to respect the club and its equipment. And rule number 3 is have fun. And then we added, do not skip 1 and 2 to get to 3, because you know everybody want to have fun. But with us, it's respect plays a big part. So one of the things we had to start back over with the kids is just being respectful to each other, and first of all being respectful to themselves, and then them having to respect the staff that was here with them, because I think they had lost that after not being around us, lost that without being in school. So now they're back in school, now you're back at the club. So all of the basic things that they probably were not doing, we needed to start those things back over again. We have something also that's called Power Hour. Power Hour only means where the kids get to sit and do their homework. All the elementary kids, middle school, high school, they have homework time that they have to do. We were blessed at our club because we have a great partnership with Stutson University. So we have some kids that are on a program that's called the Bonner program. So that means they have to come and do certain hours here with our kids. So we were able to use them to help with our kids with their studies, with their homework, with their reading, with their math, with just sitting, having group time, just sitting and having conversations with each other. Things that we may have heard on news. Well, how did you feel today when you were in school? What positive thing you did today? So it took all of those things to work together to get our kids back to thinking in a positive manner and just thinking, period, about how we can look at ourselves and try to make a difference within our own selves.
Did Hurricane Ian and Tropical Storm Nicole have an effect on the kids?
It's so funny, when we came back after the hurricanes and I talked to our middle school, basically middle school, high school kids, and the majority of the kids were middle school. When I would ask them how they felt, some said, I felt scared. Some may say, oh, Miss Cynthia, we were good until my power went off, when I couldn't get on my phone anymore, when I couldn't use the internet anymore. So for them, it wasn't like a whole big scary time or unknown time, just a few were scared. It affected them in the way of they could not use their devices, their technology, and that's what they were concerned about.
Even though Mother only had a 3rd grade education, but Mother got the neighbors and teachers and preachers in the church and deacons and what have you, and all kinds of people that we had in the neighborhood to assist me with my homework. And this is what we had to do. The pandemic is just one of those crises that we've had. We've always responded as a group of people, as African American people, we've always had challenges. And we always overcome those challenges by working together. We have to make sure we do what's in the best interest of our children. It is important that we do that, because if Johnny or Mary can read, write, and add, if they can compute and articulate the issues of life, they will be successful in life. If they cannot do those things, we know they will be falling further and further behind in this world. So we have an obligation, I always say, a moral, a personal, and professional obligation to do what's in the best interest of our children. And please do not leave it up to the schools. The school has a role to play, but we have to make sure as parents, grandparents, or significant adults in the household, take the initiative and do what we think is best for our children.
My name is Camille Holder Brown. How did COVID-19 affect my children's learning ability? During the pandemic, we had a combination of learning. We have always homeschooled our 6 children. The older 2, one of them is in college, and the other one is at a sports academy now. So right now, the 4 youngest are the ones that I homeschool daily. And I would say that part of the year they were at a Montessori private school. And that was the first time they had really been in a school. A lot of days were like canceled because someone was exposed and they had to wear the mask, and it was definitely interesting. I think with children, you know, the more consistent you can be, the better. But my children had already been like accustomed to like a different learning environment and style because they have grown up in a restaurant which has a plethora of distractions. So what we did for this school year is we started back our regular homeschooling, and we joined a homeschool co-op that we meet with. And so we typically do a little of our basic subjects. We try to do it every day, but honestly, it ends up being about, 4 times out of 7 days a week. And so we cover our core subjects, and other than that, we're kind of out and about. I think that if your children love learning, they learn in any environment. And so pandemic or no pandemic, hurricane or no hurricane, learning has to happen if they love learning and you instill that in them. So having said that, they have gotten different responsibilities. They've grown up in the restaurant business. So the older ones can work the cash register. Well, now they're taking a class where they're learning about budgeting, and they're learning about, things that probably some adults don't know about running a business. So I make sure that they are always learning, but it's not a typical learning day. And there's our homeschooling looks different every year. They always have activities that they do, like some of them do soccer, some of them are dancers, some of them are, some of them are volleyball players, and they do. I have one that does Girl Scouts, Black Male Explorers. I mean, they have activities on top of that. So that's a part of their education because they're always doing things with that as well. I try to make it really comprehensive. We do not just do bookwork all day for 8 hours. Not at all, not in my family.
And how are the grades now compared to high school kids going to a normal high school?
Okay, so when I look at my children's in terms of like grades, I look at a bigger picture. I did just open up my son's weekly grade report. He's in the National Honor Society. My oldest daughter graduated with her associate's degree at 17 from Daytona State. So I would say that yes, their grades are amazing. My 13-year-old built a robot last year, like from scratch with soldering and an electrical circuit board. But I don't really look at grades the way that other people may look at grades because I grew up making straight A's and not learning it per se, memorizing it but not learning it. And so I'm really into like metacognition, which is like knowing how to learn and to teach yourself things. And of course with that I have to minimize devices and those kind of distractions.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about your homeschooling training or the future of your homeschooling training?
Well, all my children are now transitioning out of homeschool. They have left and they've gone to college. I have one child left and he has transitioned to high school actually. So he's going to be at high school where his father is a teacher and his coach. So he's had a great transition. He didn't have any problems transitioning to high school as people once thought that he wouldn't have the social skills that he needed. And nothing is further from the truth when you homeschool. Children get lots of opportunities to homeschool and to socialize. They just socialize differently than what traditional classrooms socialization looks like. And actually they socialize a whole bunch more because the rules are a lot more relaxed in homeschool as opposed to how harsh they are in the regular high school classroom.
And going forward, how are they doing now?
Now they're doing better, especially you. Yeah.
I'm doing good. I have A's and B's.
How about you? You did good after the pandemic.
Yeah.
You still struggled a little bit, but
Yeah, and I'm still struggling. I went to an A to a D real quick
yeah, well, we're working on that.
in math.
Yeah.
Then my
But
CPA
after
went
as soon as you guys were able to go back to school, that was a good thing when they were actually back in the classroom.
Yeah,
When
I
I
had
was-
A and B honor roll, I think.
Yeah.
When I was able to go back to school, it did help with my grades a lot
A lot.
better. Because now I have mostly A's.
Because of the online, with the online schooling, they didn't have the teacher present there to show them. So it was just, here's your assignment, this is what you have to do, you taught yourself.
Yeah. And I'm like more of a
Hands-on in the classroom, yes.
And what school do you go to?
I go to Creekside High School.
Jordan Creek Elementary.
Do you think things have gotten back to normal?
No, absolutely not. I know there's a shortage of teachers, there's a shortage of resources, and they're trying, but there is no sense of normal. We're still not structured the same way in the school system, and it makes, I would think that's also making things just harder. So I don't know how long it's going to take to have that stability back in our school system and have the resources and the stability of teachers. We still have teachers that are there for a while and gone, and new teachers and new teachers. So again, I don't see that they've brought back the consistency that's needed to help with a full structure, to help structure a child or structure the students. If there is no stability and structure in the school system and the way they're going, it's not helping them. They're still waffling. They're still trying to get by. So I currently still have my son at home, but I speak with lots of other parents and familiar with other teachers, and they're having the same challenges. So I really don't see it getting, I think they're trying, but I don't see it getting back to normal.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Nope. Thank you for sharing my story.
Thank you. You're welcome.
My name is Pastor Nathan Magala, pastoring Allen Chapel AME Church here in the city of Daytona Beach, where I've served for 15 years now. And it's certainly my happy pleasure to be able to share with you on today. We've always believed in community engagement. So a lot of things that we've done, going back to the time of the pandemic, we were able to provide supplies to the community. We provided information to make sure that people were staying healthy. And we have always provided food.
Do you think that things have gotten any better or back to normal?
I think things are not back to normal, but I do think things are getting better. I know with our kids, we just seen in our kids that they have so much negative things to say or think negative. A horseplay around, hitting and running or saying things that's inappropriate to each other that we're working on. They use the word all the time, bullying, and so we're trying to work with our youth about thinking positive rather than thinking negative. Think of good things before we think of things that's not so good, because I think our mindset, because of everything that's been going on with the hurricanes back to back, with COVID back to back, I think it really has affected us mentally that we don't know so much that it has affected us mentally.
Can you tell us what the church has done for the community through Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Nicole?
Well, Allen Chapel has always been engaged with the community, and when we experienced Hurricane Ian and the storm Nicole, a lot of people within our community, not just our members, but within the community, most of them were displaced. They had lost a lot of food, and they needed some help. So one of the things that we did as a church was to make sure that we provided food, water to the people within the community, just to help them out until they could get their things together.
Even with myself personally, I felt myself having now anxiety attacks that I never had. And I noticed that came for me that after I was diagnosed with COVID, after I had COVID, that sometimes I can feel like something want to come over me. So I feel as an adult, if I have those feelings, I'm quite sure the kids have to have those feelings. So we're trying to do more of circle time, just talking, communication, using a lot of words or conversations for the kids to just start thinking, because I just think we're not where we need to be, but we're a little better than where we started from. But we do have a long way to go. So I just feel if we just can respect each other and listen to each other, communicate with each other, but as we are talking, that we are actually listening to what each other is saying and respecting each other in that same manner, that we can get to a place where we really need to be.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Dr. Kimmons, do you feel that Hurricane Ian and Tropical Storm Nicole will affect the learning?
Oh, it had a great question, tremendous impact. Psychologically, mentally, physically, it had a tremendous impact. You're talking about the pandemic, and then you're talking about 2 hurricanes back to back. We still have people right today that are still suffering. We don't publicize like we used to, and our kids are suffering. They already had a lot of what I call maybe genetic diseases or what have you, but as it is, a lot of our parents didn't have proper insurance. A lot of our parents did not know where to turn. A lot of our parents are homeless. A lot of our parents lost their jobs. It had a tremendous impact, So now if I can't work, how can I provide for my child? If I don't have a place to stay because the hurricanes wiped out everything. We had too many parents in Volusia County and Daytona Beach lost everything. The homes were flooded. So what are you going to do about the children? There are children going from house to house, motel to motel, hotel to hotel, living with families and friends, so they're not stable. So if you don't have a stable home environment, it is not conducive to learning. So it had a tremendous impact. Psychologically, a lot of our kids right now have mental disorders, and they have all kinds of learning disabilities. And it has a lingering effect for years to come. And I think our parents need to understand that, and we need to make sure we try to get our children some professional help, because, we will see the impact of the hurricane on our children for the next 5 or 10 years.
How did the Hurricane Ian and Tropical Storm Nicole affect my homeschooling? It's disruptive, obviously. However, we shift gears into life skills. So yes, the book work part of life may get on the back burner because we're figuring out how do we make food with no electricity, but we're still learning. So we're part of a group called 4-H, and that's like a national program. So we have been learning how to use a Faro stick, and we have a Go Pack, which is everything you would need to go in the middle of the forest and like try to live off the land for a couple days. Like, we're learning those skills. The survival skills is education, and helping neighbors after a storm, and just being, supportive and kind. And we volunteered and we fed other people that didn't have power. That is all part of their education for our family. So that is kind of how we shift gears.
Tell us some of the other things that the church does for the community.
Right now we are in partnership with the city of Daytona Beach, as well as FEMA, trying to provide financial resources to those who have lost their homes or who are trying to work on their homes. We are working diligently with our city officials to make sure that people have what they need to move forward.
As a group of people, as African American people, we always had challenges. And we always overcome those challenges by working together. We have to make sure we do what's in the best interest of our children. It is important. And I always tell people that there's no right or wrong way of teaching and learning and raising children. The best thing to do, number one, is pray. And the other thing to do is make sure you're consistent and persistent. And you make sure you let child know that you value education. It is important that you value it. And as I indicated earlier, if education is valued in the home, it will be valued by the child.
You do a lot of things with Bethune-Cookman too. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we are right across the street from Bethune-Cookman University, and one of the things that we believe is really working closely with Bethune-Cookman University. We have a lot of the students that we are working with. You know, most of them are coming from out of town, and sometimes when they need help, Allen Chapel is there to be able to serve, you know, them. We are able to work with them through their challenges that they experience. As a matter of fact, most of our members work at Bethune-Cookman University, so they're always there trying to help the students at Bethune-Cookman University.
Yes.
Do you think that things will ever get back to normal?
I think it's going to have to be a slow process. And I think that, and I appreciate you asking that question, I really don't know what normal is to a lot of people, because people think if you can eat and, you know, if you can sleep, you got a place to live, that's normal. But I think that psychologically, Mr. Dwayne, psychologically, it's going to be there for a long time. Well, I've been blessed as a country boy. I've written 7 books, and my 5th book is a parenting guidebook. My godmother, the late great Honorable Shirley Chisholm, first African-American female to be elected to Congress of the United States in 1968, first African-American female to run for president in 1972, she wrote the foreword. She's been in my life since I was 9 years old, so now I'm 78 years old. I'm blessed. So the parenting guidebook is for parents, and for students, for teachers, for schools, for communities and churches to help save our children, save our schools. And anybody that's interested in the growth and development of children, that's why I wrote the book. Mrs. Chisholm said, you got to write a parenting guidebook because I don't know another black male that's written a parenting guidebook. And it's important that we do that because we need to step up to the plate as African American men and set the example for our children.
Pastor McCullough, is there anything else you would like to add to that?
Well, one of the things that I've always believed is that when we come to church on Sunday morning, we come to worship. But when we depart to serve. As a church, we cannot just be content with coming together and worshiping, but we have to be engaged, we have to be involved in the community to be able to make a difference within our community. As a matter of fact, as a church, we ought to be a light in the community where people can be able to look up. In times of hopelessness, they need to be able to know that there's a place they can go to and get the help that they need.
Thank you.